to talk about The Wrestler, and this is from Darren Aronofsky, who, you know, he did Pi and Requiem for a Dream and The Fountain. And it's interesting because he is a filmmaker that's similar to David Fincher. I'm gonna use a word I used last week. He's an austere filmmaker, like Kubrick, very composed, very
precise,
austere, symmetrical, balanced frames. And this movie is shot like a documentary. And a documentary on Randy the Ram something, forget his last name.
Richardson.
Played by...
Or Richards.
Well, you did just say it.
I did, it's Richardson or something.
Played by Mickey Rourke. And he's basically a once great wrestler of the 80s and is now sort of washed up and trying to make something of his life and his daughter and all that stuff. So I'm actually going to go to Jeff again because I know that Jeff has a thing for wrestling. And
I don't think you guys even know how much of a wrestling mark I am. I have had twice in my life, I have had subscriptions to Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer, Figure 4 Weekly.
Figure 4 Weekly.
I mean, I'm a huge wrestling mark. And what I have loved in the past about the industry is what's a work and what's a shoot. I love when they break kayfabe. That is what I'm into with wrestling. It's the nuts and bolts of behind the scenes. I have said that I don't usually buy DVDs. One of the few DVDs I own is Beyond the Mat.
It's great, great documentary.
Great documentary, but I have
I'd to borrow that actually.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, because that was a huge.
So I mean, I really followed the behind the scenes stuff of wrestling. So I think I'm uniquely.
And not just WWE, you follow like Ring of Honor, you're familiar with that stuff
Oh
too,
yeah,
right?
no, I follow the indie.
Not
so much anymore, but the industry as a whole, like where guys go back and forth. And this movie is very much inside baseball. It feels like you said, certainly the first half feels like you're watching a documentary, how it's shot, but also the way it doesn't explain stuff for the audience. And I wonder how much of the audience that sees this that doesn't have any vested interest in wrestling, that just thinks it's this fake sport, it'll really sink in, because I think this movie's tremendous. I love how Randy the Ram is kind of this amalgamation between Terry Funk and Jake the Snake Roberts and like a little Hulk Hogan thrown in.
Yeah.
Although they said he said he was modeling him after Lex Luger, which is really tragic if you know what happened to Lex Luger. He's paralyzed now.
Yeah.
I adore this film. I think his performance is wonderful, and it's about redemption, and man, I think, like I said, I don't know if everybody would have the same experience I did, but for me, it was so right what I love.
Well, Alex, you're someone else.
Yeah, I am someone else. I am someone else, and I mean, I followed wrestling as a kid, but by no means was I into Figure 4 Weekly, though that is probably the best name for a magazine in the history of magazines. I don't think there's anything that could have been in this movie to make me like it anymore. I just saw it today, and it was mind-blowing. I mean, it was mind-blowingly good. We've seen a lot of Oscar movies, and I'm not a big fan of Make Alex Cry movies, which we've seen like 7 in the last like month, right? So I go into these movies kind of like, this will be an experience, and some of them have been great, and some of them have been okay. This movie was amazing start to finish, at least for me. There were things that I'm sure Dan will tell me other filmmakers have done, like, for me, the jump cuts that he used, when it would go from scene, and it was like, instead of the scene, like the scene, he pulls up in a car, and you know, he turns off the car, and in most movies you see, he gets out of the car, you see him get out of the car, he closes the door, gets his bags, and he starts walking down. At this, it's like, he pulls up into the car, there's a moment, jump cut to he's out of the car walking, and for some reason it kept this like, I don't know, it's just really intense, and I loved it, and a lot of Marissa Tomei naked, which I was very thankful for.
She's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous.
She's the hottest.
She's been on my list for a long time, yeah.
Rescue Me.
Yeah.
The Wrestler is my other favorite movie of the year. Milk, Doubt, The Wrestler. This movie, I agree, amazing. And I was, friends with a guy who was a part of Ring of Honor, which is sort of where some of this movie is set in that realm, and went to Japan to wrestle and was a part of the WWE. And from my brief encounters with that, it felt so true. And Mick Foley has just come out and spoke about the veracity of all the things that happen in this movie. But you don't need him to say that, because it wouldn't matter if this was completely fake. If this was Quidditch, you know what I mean? Like the performances and everything.
Wow. Wow.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Everything.
Did you write that down?
I want to see
that was
Darren Aronofsky's Quidditch movie.
The Quidditch.
No, The Seeker.
The Seeker.
Oh, man.
That is a movie.
That is so go ahead.
But anyway,
TV show.
Amazing. And you know, guys, an East Coast to a T, by the way. If you want to know where we grew up,
yeah,
that's how it
Jersey,
looks.
baby.
You know, in some movies, a heroic act is winning the All Valley tournament or finding the Ark of the Covenant. And in this movie, it's working at a deli. Like, and it is a very Greek movie, and Marissa Tomei is amazing, and he is amazing, and it's awesome.
Funny that you
so
say that
intimate.
about the deli, because when that happened, to me, I really did feel, I was like, he's doing this shit, and he's got a job.
It is such an intimate film too.
Those are such
you
great
have these
scenes.
small little moments with this man in such intimate quarters, and it is such a raw performance.
Yeah, it's
that
very good.
it's not showy. It's not. There are these little moments of humanity and really. You know, when you know the story also of Mickey Rourke,
Yeah.
you know, it's like it feels so much deeper, because it feels like this guy's treading on stuff that he's gone through with substance abuse and all that stuff. It is such a, you really feel like you're right in there with that person, like a documentary.
Evan Rachel Wood was amazing too. She's the daughter. She's
awesome.
just amazing.
You know, I've always felt like he's a square filmmaker. Kubrick is a rectangle filmmaker, and he is. And for some reason, when watching the film, I was like, man, he shoots like in squares, and Requiem as well. And this is done in a completely different style, and I love that he can pick this up, and he has this hip hop editing in his other things that he calls it, with those quick cuts, and you refer to these jump cuts, but it's still completely different than he's using the tools differently.
And I love that they followed the characters.
Yeah, like you're over behind his shoulder.
Most scenes were behind the shoulder.
So you're
and then
on the
found
journey
it.
with them.
No, it also it's this metaphor for the walk through the tunnel.
Yeah.
Dude,
Well,
which is what
those
those.
two.
But the whole movie is that. It's like. Also, I read this awesome interview with Mickey Rourke where he talked about the screening that they did, where David Fincher and he were having a talk back at the end, and David Fincher goes, "Oh, I just got word that Rowdy Roddy Piper is in the audience."
Darren, or
what did I say?
David Fincher.
Oh, I mean Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah,
Excuse
yeah.
me. It was weird. David Fincher was there talking about the movie.
They were talking Spanish.
No. Pardon me on that. But he said that Rowdy Piper was in the audience, and he said he'd never seen Aronofsky get so nervous and like, "Oh, do you want to say something?" And Piper stood up and like started getting emotional about how, you know. And that's the life of so many of these guys. That's the life that they lead, and it's like they punish their bodies for entertainment of these people who.
But it's also.
Well, there was even a moment, I have to say, there was even a moment for me as an entertainer, as somebody who that is what I do professionally. There was definitely moments when I was thinking, 20 years from now, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And that, to me, was the most.
There's stuff. It's not just.
that was like,
it's
yeah.
not just if you're fascinated about wrestling. You don't have to be Roddy Red Piper to empathize with the character, because it's also about the smaller moments in life that are what make heroism and it's standing up against things and deciding to do things that are very difficult. Where you work, it's all relatable because everything is just so well written and performed.
Amazing. Amazing.